Have you ever been in a situation where someone judged you just because of how you looked? Imagine being body shamed and racially insulted in public, all because of the color of your skin and your size. What would you do? How would you react? This is the story of a brave woman named Tasha, who faced such a situation head-on, and the racist white woman who lived to regret her actions. But before we dive into the story, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more gripping and inspiring stories like this one. Now let's get into it. The mall was bustling with people, the air filled with the hum of conversations, laughter, and the occasional beep of a cash register. Tasha Johnson, a 32-year-old plus-size black woman, was walking through the food court, holding a tray with her favorite meal, a juicy burger, fries, and a large soda. She had just finished a long shift at work and was treating herself to some comfort food. Tasha was confident, radiant, and unapologetically herself. She had worked hard to love her body, and nothing could shake her self-esteem, or so she thought. As she made her way to an empty table, she noticed a woman staring at her. The woman, who looked to be in her late 40s, had piercing blue eyes and a sneer on her face. She was thin, with blonde hair tied back in a tight ponytail, and wore a designer outfit that screamed privilege. Tasha tried to ignore her, but the woman's gaze was relentless. Just as Tasha sat down, the woman stood up from her table and walked over, her high heels clicking loudly against the tiled floor. "Excuse me," the woman said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Do you really think you should be eating that? I mean, look at you. You're already, well, let's just say you're not exactly small. Don't you care about your health? Or is this just how you people are?" Tasha froze, her heart pounding in her chest. Did this woman really just say that? She felt a mix of anger, embarrassment, and disbelief. The food court seemed to grow quieter, as if everyone had sensed the tension and stopped to watch. Tasha took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, but the woman wasn't done. And honestly, the woman continued, her voice rising, "You people always act like you own the place. Don't you have any shame? You're taking up so much space, and now you're stuffing your face like it's nobody's business. Disgusting." Tasha's hands trembled as she put her fork down. She could feel the eyes of everyone in the food court on her, waiting to see how she would respond. But before she could say anything, the woman leaned in closer, her voice low but venomous. "You know what? You're a disgrace. People like you make this country look bad. Go back to where you came from." The words hit Tasha like a punch to the gut. She felt tears welling up in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She wasn't going to give this woman the satisfaction of seeing her break down. But just as she was about to respond, something unexpected happened. A man sitting at a nearby table stood up. He was tall, with broad shoulders and a kind face. He walked over to Tasha's table and stood beside her, his presence commanding attention. "Ma'am," he said, his voice calm but firm, "you need to stop. What you're saying is not only rude, but completely unacceptable. You have no right to talk to her like that." The woman turned to him, her eyes narrowing. "And who do you think you are? This is none of your business." "It is my business when I see someone being treated unfairly," the man replied. "You should be ashamed of yourself." The woman scoffed, but before she could say anything else, another voice chimed in. It was a young girl, no older than 16, who had been sitting with her family nearby. "Yeah, leave her alone," the girl shouted. "You're being really mean." One by one, more people in the food court began to speak up, defending Tasha and calling out the woman for her behavior. The woman looked around, her face turning red with anger and embarrassment. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. Instead, she grabbed her purse and stormed off, her heels clicking furiously against the floor. Tasha sat there, stunned. She couldn't believe what had just happened. The man who had stood up for her turned to her and smiled. "Are you okay?" he asked. Tasha nodded, still trying to process everything. "Thank you," she said softly. I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," the man replied. "No one should have to go through that. My name's Marcus, by the way." "I'm Tasha," she said, managing a small smile. "Thank you, Marcus." "Really?" As the food court slowly returned to normal, Tasha couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. The woman's words had cut deep, and she knew that she would need to find a way to heal from this experience. But for now, she was grateful for the kindness of strangers who had stood up for her when she needed it most. Little did Tasha know, this was just the beginning of a journey that would change her life, and the life of the woman who had tried to bring her down. What will happen next? Will Tasha find the strength to confront the woman who humiliated her? And what about the woman? Will she realize the error of her ways? Or will she continue down a path of hatred and regret? Stay tuned for the next chapter, where the story takes an unexpected turn. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more gripping stories like this one. The days following the incident at the mall were a whirlwind of emotions for Tasha. She replayed the scene over and over in her mind, each time feeling a mix of anger, sadness, and determination. She had always been proud of who she was, a strong, confident Black woman who had overcome countless obstacles in her life. But the encounter with the woman in the food court had shaken her in a way she hadn't expected. Tasha decided to take some time off work to focus on herself. She spent her days journaling, meditating, and talking to her closest friends about what had happened. Her best friend, Keisha, was especially supportive, reminding Tasha of her worth and encouraging her to turn the negative experience into something positive. "You've always been a fighter, Tasha," Keisha said during one of their phone calls. "Don't let one ignorant woman make you forget that. You're beautiful, inside and out, and you deserve to be treated with respect." Tasha knew Keisha was right, but she still couldn't shake the feeling of unease that lingered in the back of her mind. She couldn't help but wonder if the woman who had insulted her felt any remorse for her actions. Did she even realize the impact of her words? Or was she just another person who thought she could get away with saying whatever she wanted? Meanwhile, across town, the woman from the mall, her name was Linda, was also struggling to move on from the incident. Linda had always considered herself a good person. She volunteered at her church, donated to charity, and prided herself on being a law-abiding citizen. But the truth was, Linda had always harbored prejudices that she had never fully acknowledged. She had grown up in a predominantly white neighborhood, surrounded by people who looked and thought like her, and had never been forced to confront her own biases. The incident at the mall had been a wake-up call for Linda, but not in the way she had expected. She had been embarrassed by the way people had turned against her, but instead of reflecting on her actions, she had doubled down on her anger. She convinced herself that she had been the victim, that Tasha and the others had overreacted and made her look bad. "They're just too sensitive," Linda muttered to herself as she scrolled through social media, looking for validation. "I was just trying to help her. If she can't take a little criticism, that's her problem." But deep down, Linda knew that wasn't true. She had seen the hurt in Tasha's eyes, and it had stirred something in her that she couldn't quite explain. She tried to push the feeling away, but it kept creeping back like a shadow she couldn't escape. One evening, Linda's daughter, Emily, came home from college for the weekend. Emily was a bright, compassionate young woman who had always been close to her mother, but lately, she had started to notice a change in Linda. She seemed more irritable, more closed off, and Emily couldn't figure out why. "Mom, is everything okay?" Emily asked as they sat down for dinner. "You seem different lately." Linda hesitated, unsure of how to respond. She didn't want to admit what had happened at the mall, but she also knew that she couldn't keep it bottled up forever. "I had a bad experience the other day," Linda finally said, her voice trembling slightly. "At the mall, there was this woman, and well, things got out of hand." Emily frowned, sensing that there was more to the story. "What happened, Mom?" Linda took a deep breath and told Emily everything. How she had confronted Tasha, the things she had said, and how the other people in the food court had turned against her. As she spoke, she could see the disappointment in Emily's eyes, and it made her feel even worse. "Mom, I can't believe you said those things," Emily said, her voice filled with disbelief. "That's not the person I know. How could you be so mean?" Linda felt a lump form in her throat. She had always prided herself on being a good role model for her daughter, but now she felt like she had failed her in the worst way possible. "I don't know, Emily," Linda admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know." Emily reached across the table and took her mother's hand. "Mom, you need to make this right. You can't just pretend it didn't happen. That woman, Tasha, She didn't deserve to be treated like that. You need to apologize. Linda nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. She knew Emily was right, but the thought of facing Tasha again filled her with dread. What if Tasha didn't accept her apology? What if she yelled at her, or worse, humiliated her in front of everyone? But Linda also knew that she couldn't keep running from the truth. She had made a mistake, and it was time to take responsibility for her actions. The next day, Linda went back to the mall, hoping to find Tasha. She didn't know if Tasha would be there, but she had to try. As she walked through the food court, her heart pounding in her chest, she spotted Tasha sitting at the same table where the incident had occurred. Tasha was alone, sipping on a cup of coffee and scrolling through her phone. Linda took a deep breath and approached the table, her hands trembling. "Excuse me," she said softly, her voice barely audible. Tasha looked up, her eyes widening in surprise when she saw who it was. For a moment, neither of them spoke, the tension between them palpable. I just wanted to say I'm sorry," Linda finally said, her voice breaking. "I was wrong and I shouldn't have said those things to you. I don't know what came over me, but I'm truly sorry." Tasha stared at her, her expression unreadable. Linda braced herself for the worst, but instead, Tasha simply nodded. "Thank you for apologizing," Tasha said quietly. "It takes a lot of courage to do that." Linda felt a wave of relief wash over her, but it was short-lived. She knew that this was just the first step, and that there was still a long way to go before she could truly make amends. As she walked away, Linda couldn't help but wonder if she would ever be able to fully repair the damage she had caused. And Tasha, sitting at the table, couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. The tension between Tasha and Linda had reached a boiling point. But what would happen next? Would Linda's apology be enough to mend the rift between them? Or would their paths cross again in a way neither of them could have predicted? The days following Linda's apology were anything but peaceful. Tasha found herself replaying the moment over and over in her mind. Linda's words had been sincere, but Tasha couldn't shake the lingering hurt. An apology, no matter how heartfelt, couldn't erase the sting of being publicly humiliated. Still, Tasha appreciated the effort. It was more than she had expected from someone like Linda. Meanwhile, Linda was struggling with her own emotions. Apologizing had been the hardest thing she'd ever done, but it had also opened a door to self-reflection that she wasn't ready to face. She had spent her life surrounded by people who shared her views, and now, for the first time, she was questioning everything she thought she knew. One evening, Linda sat alone in her living room, staring at the blank TV screen. Her daughter, Emily, had gone back to college, leaving Linda to her thoughts. She picked up her phone and hesitated before typing racism and body shaming into the search bar. What she found was a flood of articles, personal stories, and videos that made her stomach churn. She read about the experiences of Black women who had faced discrimination and prejudice, and for the first time, she began to understand the weight of her actions. How could I have been so blind? Linda whispered to herself, tears streaming down her face. She realized that her apology to Tasha was only the beginning. If she truly wanted to change, she needed to do more, much more. The next morning, Linda decided to take a step she never thought she would. She reached out to a local organization that offered workshops on racial sensitivity and anti-racism. The idea of attending made her nervous, but she knew it was necessary. She signed up for a session that weekend, her hands trembling as she filled out the registration form. When the day arrived, Linda walked into the community center feeling like an outsider. The room was filled with people of different races, ages, and backgrounds, all there to learn and grow. Linda took a seat in the back, trying to make herself as small as possible. She felt out of place, but she reminded herself why she was there. The workshop was led by a woman named Dr. Amina Carter, a renowned sociologist and activist. Dr. Carter spoke passionately about the history of racism, the impact of microaggressions, and the importance of allyship. Linda listened intently, her heart heavy with guilt and regret. She realized how much she had contributed to the problem, even if she hadn't meant to. During a group discussion, Linda found herself paired with a young Black woman named Jasmine. Jasmine shared her experiences of being body-shamed and racially profiled, and Linda felt a lump form in her throat. She wanted to apologize, to tell Jasmine how sorry she was for everything she had done, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, Linda simply listened. She listened to Jasmine's pain, her anger, and her resilience. And for the first time, Linda truly understood the impact of her actions, not just on Tasha, but on countless others like her. When the workshop ended, Linda approached Dr. Carter. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling. I have a lot to learn, but I'm ready to do the work." Dr. Carter smiled warmly. "That's the first step," she said. "Change doesn't happen overnight, but it starts with people like you being willing to listen and grow." Linda left the workshop feeling both exhausted and hopeful. She knew she had a long road ahead, but for the first time in her life, she felt like she was heading in the right direction. Meanwhile, Tasha was also on a journey of her own. She had been inspired by the support she received from strangers at the mall and decided to use her experience to help others. She started a blog called Unapologetically Me, where she shared her story and encouraged others to embrace their true selves, no matter what society said. The blog quickly gained traction, and Tasha was overwhelmed by the response. Women from all walks of life reached out to share their own stories of body shaming and racism. Tasha realized that she wasn't alone and that her voice could make a difference. One evening, as Tasha was working on a new blog post, she received a message from an anonymous user. The message read, "Hi Tasha, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your story. I was the woman who insulted you at the mall, and I'm so sorry for what I did. I've been attending workshops and trying to educate myself, but I know that's not enough. I just wanted you to know that I'm committed to doing better. Thank you for inspiring me to change." Tasha stared at the message, her heart racing. She hadn't expected to hear from Linda again, and she wasn't sure how to feel. Part of her wanted to respond with anger, to tell Linda that her apology wasn't enough. But another part of her recognized the courage it took for Linda to reach out. Tasha took a deep breath and typed a response. "Thank you for your message. Change isn't easy, but it's possible. I hope you continue to learn and grow. We all have a responsibility to do better." As she hit send, Tasha felt a sense of closure. She knew that her journey wasn't over, but she also knew that she had taken a step toward healing. The paths of Tasha and Linda had crossed in a way neither of them could have predicted. Both women were on a journey of self-discovery and growth, but their stories were far from over. What would happen next? Would Linda's efforts to change be enough to earn Tasha's forgiveness? And how would Tasha's blog continue to impact the lives of others? Tasha's blog, Unapologetically Me, had become a safe space for women to share their stories of resilience and self-love. The comment section was filled with messages of gratitude, solidarity, and empowerment. Tasha felt a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. She was no longer just a victim of racism and body shaming. She was a voice for change. One evening, as Tasha scrolled through the comments on her latest post, she noticed a message that stood out. It was from a woman named Sarah, who shared a story that mirrored Tasha's experience almost exactly. Sarah had been body shamed by a co-worker in front of their entire office, and the incident had left her feeling broken and humiliated. "Your blog gave me the courage to speak up," Sarah wrote. "I confronted my co-worker, and while it wasn't easy, it felt good to stand up for myself. Thank you for inspiring me to find my voice." Tasha felt a surge of pride as she read Sarah's message. This was exactly why she had started the blog, to help others find the strength to fight back against injustice. She replied to Sarah, encouraging her to keep speaking her truth and reminding her that she wasn't alone. But as Tasha continued to read through the comments, she couldn't shake the memory of Linda's anonymous message. Linda's words had been sincere, but Tasha still felt conflicted. Could she ever truly forgive someone who had hurt her so deeply? And even if she did, what would that forgiveness look like? Meanwhile, Linda was making progress in her journey of self-improvement. She had attended several more workshops and even joined a book club focused on anti-racism literature. The more she learned, the more she realized how much work she still had to do. She was determined to become a better person, not just for herself, but for her daughter, Emily, and for the people she had hurt. One afternoon, Linda decided to take a bold step. She reached out to Dr. Amina Carter, the facilitator of the workshop she had attended, and asked if they could meet for coffee. Dr. Carter agreed, and the two women sat down together at a small cafe in the city. I want to do more, Linda said, her voice filled with determination. I want to make a real difference, but I don't know where to start. Dr. Carter smiled warmly. The fact that you're here, willing to learn and grow, is a great start, she said. But if you really want to make a difference, you need to take action. Have you thought about reaching out to the woman you hurt? A public apology could go a long way. Linda's heart sank at the suggestion. The thought of facing Tasha again filled her with dread, but she knew Dr. Carter was right. If she truly wanted to make amends, she needed to be willing to confront the consequences of her actions. I'll do it, Linda said, her voice trembling. I'll reach out to her. That evening, Linda sat down at her computer and began typing a message to Tasha. This time, she didn't hide behind anonymity. She introduced herself and explained how she had been working to educate herself and become a better person. She apologized again for her actions and asked if Tasha would be willing to meet in person so she could apologize face-to-face. When Tasha received the message, she was taken aback. She hadn't expected Linda to reach out again, let alone ask to meet in person. Part of her wanted to ignore the message, to protect herself from the pain of reliving the incident. But another part of her was curious. What had driven Linda to make such a request? And could this be an opportunity for healing? Not just for Linda, but for herself as well? After much deliberation, Tasha decided to respond. She agreed to meet Linda at a neutral location, a quiet park on the outskirts of town. She didn't know what to expect, but she knew that this meeting could be a turning point for both of them. The day of the meeting arrived, and both women were nervous. Tasha arrived first, sitting on a bench beneath a large oak tree. She watched as Linda approached, her heart pounding in her chest. Linda looked different than she had at the mall, softer, more vulnerable. She carried a small notebook in her hands, as if she had prepared for this moment. "Hi, Tasha," Linda said, her voice trembling. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me." Tasha nodded, unsure of what to say. The two women sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared history hanging in the air. Finally, Linda spoke. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since the incident at the mall," she said. "I realize how much harm I've caused, not just to you, but to so many others. I've been attending workshops and reading books, trying to educate myself, but I know that's not enough. I need to take responsibility for my actions, and that starts with apologizing to you, not just in private, but publicly." Tasha's eyes widened in surprise. She hadn't expected Linda to suggest a public apology, but she couldn't deny that it was a powerful gesture. "I understand if you don't want to forgive me," Linda continued, her voice breaking. "But I want you to know that I'm committed to doing better. I want to be an ally, not just to you, but to all the people I've hurt." Tasha took a deep breath, her mind racing. She had spent so much time focusing on her own pain that she hadn't considered the possibility of forgiveness. But as she looked at Linda, she saw something she hadn't seen before, genuine remorse. "Thank you for saying that," Tasha said softly. "It means a lot. But forgiveness, that's going to take time." Linda nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand," she said, "and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn your trust." The two women sat together for a while longer, talking about their experiences and their hopes for the future. It wasn't easy, and there were moments of tension, but for the first time, they began to see each other as human beings, flawed, complex, and capable of change. As they parted ways, Tasha felt a sense of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that this meeting had been a step in the right direction. The days following the meeting in the park were a whirlwind of emotions for both Tasha and Linda. Tasha found herself reflecting deeply on the conversation they'd had. Linda's vulnerability had surprised her, and while she wasn't ready to fully forgive her, she couldn't deny that Linda's efforts to change were genuine. Tasha decided to write about the encounter on her blog, not to expose Linda, but to share her own journey of grappling with forgiveness and healing. Her post, titled "When the Person Who Hurt You Asks for Forgiveness," went live early one morning. In it, Tasha wrote about the complexity of emotions she felt: anger, sadness, curiosity, and even a glimmer of hope. She didn't name Linda, but she described the encounter in detail, emphasizing the importance of accountability and growth. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of readers commented, sharing their own stories of forgiveness, regret, and reconciliation. One comment in particular caught Tasha's eye. It was from a woman named Maria, who wrote, "Your story reminded me of a time when I was the one who needed forgiveness. It's not easy to face the pain you've caused, but it's necessary. Thank you for showing us that healing is possible." Tasha felt a lump form in her throat as she read Maria's words. It was a reminder that everyone, at some point, is capable of causing harm and of seeking redemption. Meanwhile, Linda was preparing for the public apology she had promised. She had reached out to Dr. Amina Carter for guidance, and together, they crafted a statement that was honest, heartfelt, and free of excuses. Linda knew that this apology wouldn't erase the pain she had caused, but she hoped it would be a step toward making amends. The day of the apology arrived, and Linda stood in front of a small crowd at the community center where she had attended her first workshop. Tasha was there too, sitting in the front row, her expression unreadable. Linda's hands trembled as she unfolded the piece of paper she had prepared, but she took a deep breath and began to speak. "My name is Linda," she said, her voice shaking but clear, "and I'm here today to take responsibility for my actions. A few weeks ago, I publicly body-shamed and racially insulted a woman named Tasha. My words were cruel, hurtful, and rooted in ignorance. I am deeply ashamed of what I did, and I want to apologize to Tasha, not just for my words, but for the pain I caused." Linda paused, her eyes meeting Tasha's. "Tasha, I am so sorry. I had no right to judge you, to demean you, or to make you feel less than. You didn't deserve that, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to be better, not just for you, but for everyone I've hurt with my words and actions." The room was silent as Linda finished speaking. She folded the paper and stepped back, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't know how Tasha would respond, but she knew she had done the right thing. Tasha stood up, her eyes glistening with tears. She walked over to Linda and extended her hand. "Thank you," she said softly. "This wasn't easy for you, and I respect that. I'm not ready to say everything is okay, but this is a start." Linda shook Tasha's hand, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you for giving me the chance to apologize," she said. "I know I have a long way to go, but I'm committed to doing the work." The moment was captured by a local journalist who had been covering the event, and the story quickly spread. News outlets picked it up, framing it as a powerful example of accountability and growth. While some people praised Linda for her courage, others were skeptical, questioning whether her apology was genuine or simply an attempt to save face. Tasha found herself at the center of the media storm, fielding interview requests and messages from people around the country. She decided to use the attention to amplify her message of self-love and empowerment. In an interview with a popular online magazine, she said, "This isn't just about me or Linda. It's about all of us, about how we treat each other, how we heal, and how we grow. Change is possible, but it starts with accountability." Linda took a step, and now it's up to all of us to keep moving forward. As the weeks went by, Linda continued to attend workshops and educate herself. She even started volunteering with a local organization that supported women of color, using her privilege and resources to make a difference. It wasn't easy. She faced criticism and skepticism from some members of the community, but she remained committed to her journey. One day, Linda received a message from Tasha. It was short but meaningful. "I saw the work you're doing. Keep going." Linda smiled as she read the message. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a sign that Tasha was beginning to see her efforts. That was enough for now. The public apology had been a turning point, but it was only the beginning. Tasha's life had changed dramatically since the incident at the mall. Her blog, Unapologetically Me, had grown into a movement, and she was now receiving invitations to speak at conferences, schools, and community events. She had become a symbol of resilience and empowerment, and her story was inspiring people across the country. One such invitation came from a Women's Empowerment Summit in Chicago. Tasha was asked to be the keynote speaker, and she immediately said yes. The summit would be a chance to share her message on a larger stage and connect with other women who were fighting for change. As the date of the summit approached, Tasha found herself thinking more and more about Linda. She hadn't seen or spoken to her since the public apology, but she had been following Linda's progress from afar. Linda's efforts to educate herself and give back to the community were commendable, and Tasha couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. It was strange, she thought, to feel proud of someone who had once caused her so much pain, but there it was. Meanwhile, Linda was also preparing for a big moment. She had been invited to speak at a local anti-racism rally, and she was both excited and nervous. This would be her first time speaking publicly about her journey, and she knew it would be a test of her commitment to change. The night before the rally, Linda sat down to write her speech. She wanted to be honest about her past mistakes, but she also wanted to emphasize the importance of growth and accountability. As she wrote, she thought about Tasha and the impact their encounter had had on her life. She knew she would never be able to fully make up for what she had done, but she was determined to keep trying. The day of the Women's Empowerment Summit arrived, and Tasha stood backstage, her heart racing. She had never spoken in front of such a large audience before, but she reminded herself why she was there. This was her chance to inspire others, to show them that they were not alone. As she walked onto the stage, the crowd erupted into applause. Tasha took a deep breath and began to speak. A few months ago, I was sitting in a food court, minding my own business, when a woman approached me and said something that changed my life. Tasha said, her voice steady and strong. She body-shamed me, she racially insulted me, and she made me feel like I didn't belong. But what she didn't know was that her words would ignite a fire in me, a fire to stand up, to speak out, and to fight for myself and for others like me. The audience listened intently as Tasha shared her story, from the incident at the mall to the creation of her blog and the journey of healing that followed. She spoke about the importance of self-love, the power of community, and the need for accountability. Change is possible, Tasha said, her voice filled with conviction. But it starts with us. It starts with owning our mistakes, learning from them, and doing better. It starts with lifting each other up instead of tearing each other down. And it starts with believing that we are enough, just as we are. The crowd rose to their feet, applauding and cheering. Tasha felt a surge of emotion as she looked out at the sea of faces. She had come a long way since that day at the mall, and she knew that her journey was far from over. The next day, Linda stood on a small stage at the anti-racism rally, her hands trembling as she held her notes. The crowd was smaller than the one at Tasha's summit, but it was no less intimidating. Linda took a deep breath and began to speak. "My name is Linda," she said, her voice shaking but clear, "and I'm here today to talk about my journey, a journey of ignorance, regret, and growth. A few months ago, I said something to a woman that I will always regret. I body-shamed her, I racially insulted her, and I made her feel like she didn't belong. I am deeply ashamed of my actions, but I am here today to take responsibility for them." Linda paused, her eyes scanning the crowd. "I've spent the past few months educating myself, listening to the stories of others, and trying to become a better person. I know that I have a long way to go, but I am committed to doing the work. I am committed to being an ally, to using my privilege to lift others up instead of tearing them down." The crowd listened in silence as Linda shared her story, from the incident at the mall to the public apology and the steps she had taken since then. She spoke about the importance of accountability, the power of forgiveness, and the need for change. "I know that my apology doesn't erase the pain I caused," Linda said, her voice breaking. "But I hope that it can be a step toward healing for the woman I hurt, for myself, and for all of us. Change is possible, but it starts with us. It starts with owning our mistakes and doing better." When Linda finished speaking, the crowd erupted into applause. She stepped down from the stage, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't know if her words had made a difference, but she knew that she had done the right thing. That evening, Tasha received a text from a friend who had attended the anti-racism rally. The text included a video of Linda's speech, along with a message. "Thought you'd want to see this." Tasha watched the video, her emotions swirling as she listened to Linda's words. She could see the sincerity in Linda's eyes, the pain in her voice, and the determination in her words. It was clear that Linda was trying, really trying, to change. Tasha sat back, her mind racing. She didn't know what the future held for her and Linda, but she knew that their stories were intertwined in a way that neither of them could have predicted. And as she thought about the journey they were both on, she felt a glimmer of hope, not just for herself, but for the possibility of change and redemption. The weeks following the summit and the rally were a whirlwind for both Tasha and Linda. Tasha's keynote speech had gone viral, and she was now receiving messages from people all over the world. Women shared their own stories of body shaming, racism, and resilience, and Tasha felt a deep sense of connection to this growing community. Her blog had become more than just a platform. It was a movement, a safe space for people to find strength and solidarity. One message in particular stood out to Tasha. It was from a young girl named Mia, who was only 14 years old. Mia wrote, "Your story made me feel like I'm not alone. I've been bullied at school for my weight and my skin color, and sometimes I feel like I don't belong. But reading your blog made me realize that I'm beautiful just the way I am. Thank you for giving me hope." Tasha felt tears welling up as she read Mia's words. This was why she was doing what she was doing, to help people like Mia see their worth and find their voice. She wrote back to Mia, encouraging her to stay strong and reminding her that she was never alone. Meanwhile, Linda was also experiencing a shift in her life. Her speech at the anti-racism rally had sparked conversations in her community, and she was now being asked to speak at other events. She had even started a small support group for people who wanted to learn more about anti-racism and allyship. It wasn't always easy. She still faced criticism and skepticism from some people, but she remained committed to her journey. One evening, Linda received a message from Dr. Amina Carter. "I saw your speech," Dr. Carter wrote. "You've come a long way, Linda. I'm proud of the work you're doing. Keep going." Linda smiled as she read the message. It meant a lot to her, coming from someone she respected so much. But she knew that her journey was far from over. There was still so much to learn, so much to do. One day, Tasha received an unexpected email. It was from the organizers of a national diversity and inclusion conference, inviting her to be a panelist alongside other activists and thought leaders. The email mentioned that Linda had also been invited to speak on the panel, as her story of growth and accountability had resonated with many people. Tasha stared at the email, her heart racing. The idea of sharing a stage with Linda was both exciting and nerve-wracking. She didn't know how she felt about it, but she knew it was an opportunity she couldn't pass up. After much thought, she replied to the email, accepting the invitation. The day of the conference arrived, and Tasha and Linda found themselves backstage, waiting to go on. It was the first time they had seen each other since the public apology, and the air between them was thick with tension. "Hi, Tasha," Linda said softly. "Thank you for agreeing to do this. I know it's not easy." Tasha nodded, her expression unreadable. "I'm here because I believe in the message," she said. "But this doesn't mean everything is okay between us." "I understand," Linda replied, "and I respect that. I just want you to know that I'm grateful for the chance to be here with you." Before Tasha could respond, the moderator called them onto the stage. The two women walked out together, the audience applauding as they took their seats. The panel discussion was intense and emotional. Tasha spoke about the importance of self-love and empowerment, while Linda shared her journey of growth and accountability. The audience listened intently, moved by their stories. At one point, the moderator turned to Tasha and asked, "What would you say to someone who has been hurt by racism or body shaming? How do they begin to heal?" Tasha took a deep breath before answering. "Healing starts with acknowledging the pain," she said. "It's okay to be angry, to be hurt, to feel whatever you're feeling. But don't let that pain define you. You are so much more than what someone else says about you. Surround yourself with people who lift you up, and don't be afraid to speak your truth. And remember, you are not alone." The audience erupted into applause, and Linda found herself clapping along. She was in awe of Tasha's strength and resilience, and she felt a deep sense of respect for the woman she had once hurt so deeply. When it was Linda's turn to speak, the moderator asked, "What would you say to someone who has caused harm but wants to change? How do they begin to make amends?" Linda paused, her eyes meeting Tasha's. "Change starts with accountability," she said. "You have to own your mistakes, no matter how painful that is. And then you have to do the work. Educate yourself, listen to the stories of others, and take action. It's not enough to just say you're sorry. You have to show that you're committed to doing better. The audience was silent as Linda finished speaking, and then they began to applaud. Tasha looked at Linda, her expression softening. She didn't know if she could ever fully forgive her, but she could see that Linda was trying, really trying, to change. After the panel, Tasha and Linda found themselves alone backstage. The tension between them was still there, but it was different now, lighter somehow. "You were amazing up there," Linda said, breaking the silence. "I mean it. You're such an inspiration." Tasha smiled faintly. "Thanks. You did well too. I can see how much you've grown." Linda nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "I just want you to know that I'm not giving up," she said. "I know I have a long way to go, but I'm committed to this, to being better." Tasha reached out and placed a hand on Linda's shoulder. "I believe you," she said softly. "And that's a start." The panel discussion at the national conference had been a pivotal moment for both Tasha and Linda. For Tasha, it was a reminder of how far she had come and how much her voice mattered. For Linda, it was a validation of her efforts to change and a glimpse of the impact she could have when she used her privilege for good. In the weeks that followed, Tasha's blog continued to grow, and she was invited to collaborate with major organizations focused on diversity, inclusion, and body positivity. She also began working on a book, sharing her story in greater detail and offering advice for others who had faced similar struggles. The process was cathartic, but it also brought up painful memories that Tasha had tried to bury. One evening, as she was writing a chapter about forgiveness, Tasha found herself thinking about Linda. She had been so focused on her own healing that she hadn't fully considered the possibility of reconciliation. Could she ever truly forgive Linda? And if she did, what would that look like? Meanwhile, Linda was also reflecting on the panel discussion and the conversation she had shared with Tasha afterward. She had been inspired by Tasha's strength and grace, but she also felt a deep sense of guilt. No matter how much she had grown, she couldn't shake the feeling that she hadn't done enough to make amends. One day, Linda decided to take a bold step. She reached out to Tasha with a proposal, a joint project that would combine their experiences and perspectives to create something meaningful. The project would be a series of workshops focused on healing, accountability, and allyship, designed to bring people together and foster understanding. When Tasha received Linda's message, she was surprised but intrigued. The idea of working with Linda was daunting, but it also felt like an opportunity to turn their shared pain into something positive. After much thought, she agreed to meet with Linda to discuss the idea further. The two women met at a quiet cafe, the same one where Linda had first apologized to Tasha. The atmosphere was tense at first, but as they began to talk, the tension slowly eased. "I know this is a lot to ask," Linda said, her voice trembling. "And I completely understand if you're not comfortable with it. But I really believe that we could make a difference together." Tasha nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I think the idea has potential," she said. "But I need to be honest with you, Linda. This isn't just about the project. It's about us. If we're going to work together, we need to be clear about where we stand." Linda took a deep breath. "I understand," she said. "And I want you to know that I'm not expecting anything from you. I know I hurt you, and I know that trust takes time to rebuild. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn your trust, but I also respect your boundaries." Tasha looked at Linda, her eyes searching for any hint of insincerity. But all she saw was vulnerability and determination. It was enough to convince her to take a chance. "Okay," Tasha said finally. "Let's do it. But we take it one step at a time. And if at any point it doesn't feel right, we walk away." "Agreed?" Linda smiled, her eyes filling with tears. "Agreed." The two women spent the next few weeks planning the workshops, pouring their hearts into the project. They called it Bridges, Healing Through Understanding, and it was designed to create a safe space for difficult conversations. The workshops would include personal stories, group discussions, and activities aimed at fostering empathy and connection. When the first workshop was announced, the response was overwhelming. People from all walks of life signed up, eager to be part of something meaningful. Tasha and Linda were nervous but excited, knowing that this was their chance to make a real difference. The day of the first workshop arrived, and Tasha and Linda stood side by side at the front of the room. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation as the participants took their seats. "Welcome," Tasha began, her voice steady and warm. "Thank you for being here. This is a space for honesty, for vulnerability, and for growth. We're here to listen, to learn, and to heal." Linda stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly. "This workshop is about building bridges," she said. "It's about recognizing the pain we've caused and the pain we've experienced, and finding a way to move forward together. It's not easy, but it's worth it." As the workshop unfolded, the participants shared their stories, their struggles, and their hopes for the future. Tasha and Linda guided the discussions, offering insights from their own experiences. It was raw, emotional, and deeply transformative. At one point, a young woman named Rachel stood up to speak. "I've been on both sides of this," she said, her voice shaking. "I've been hurt, and I've hurt others. Listening to you two today has given me hope that change is possible. Thank you for showing us the way." The room erupted into applause, and Tasha and Linda exchanged a glance. In that moment, they both knew that they were exactly where they were meant to be. The success of the first Bridges workshop was just the beginning. Over the next few months, Tasha and Linda traveled across the country, hosting workshops in cities big and small. Each event was unique, but the message remained the same. Healing is possible, but it requires honesty, vulnerability, and a willingness to change. The workshops were emotionally draining, but deeply rewarding. Tasha found herself inspired by the stories she heard and the connections she made. She had always known that her journey was about more than just herself, but now she could see the ripple effect of her work. People were finding strength in her story, and it gave her a sense of purpose she had never felt before. Linda, too, was transformed by the experience. She had started this journey as a way to make amends, but it had become so much more. She was learning from the people she met, growing in ways she hadn't thought possible. She still carried the weight of her past mistakes, but she was beginning to see that her pain could be a catalyst for change. One evening, after a particularly powerful workshop in Atlanta, Tasha and Linda sat together in a quiet corner of their hotel lobby. The day had been intense, and they were both exhausted but exhilarated. "I never thought I'd be doing something like this," Linda admitted, her voice soft. When I first reached out to you, I just wanted to apologize. I never imagined we'd be here, working together like this." Tasha smiled faintly. "I know what you mean," she said. "When I started my blog, I just wanted to share my story. I never thought it would lead to this." There was a moment of silence as the two women reflected on how far they had come. Then Linda spoke again, her voice hesitant. "Tasha, I know I've said this before, but I need to say it again. I'm so sorry for what I did. I know I can't change the past, but I want you to know that I'm committed to being better. Not just for you, but for everyone." Tasha looked at Linda, her expression thoughtful. "I know you are," she said, "and I appreciate that. But forgiveness, it's a process. It's not something that happens overnight." Linda nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. "I know," she said, "and I respect that. I just want you to know that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." As the weeks went by, Tasha and Linda's partnership continued to evolve. They began to develop a deeper understanding of each other, and the walls between them slowly started to come down. It wasn't always easy. There were moments of tension and discomfort, but they were committed to the work. One day, Tasha received a message from a woman named Danielle, who had attended one of their workshops. Danielle shared that she had been inspired to start her own support group for survivors of racism and body shaming. She thanked Tasha and Linda for showing her that change was possible. Tasha showed the message to Linda, and the two women smiled. "This is why we're doing this," Tasha said, "to inspire others to take action." Linda nodded, her eyes shining with pride. "It's amazing to see the impact we're having," she said, "but we're just getting started." The next chapter of their journey took them to a national conference on diversity and inclusion, where they were invited to speak about their work. It was a full-circle moment for both of them, a chance to share their story on an even larger stage. As they stood on the stage, looking out at the sea of faces, Tasha felt a surge of emotion. She thought about how far she had come, from the pain of that day at the mall to the empowerment she felt now. She thought about Linda and how their unlikely partnership had become a source of strength for both of them. Change is possible, Tasha said, her voice strong and clear. But it starts with us. It starts with owning our mistakes, learning from them, and doing better. It starts with lifting each other up instead of tearing each other down. And it starts with believing that we are enough, just as we are. The audience erupted into applause, and Linda stepped forward to speak. I've learned that change isn't easy, she said. It requires humility, courage, and a willingness to confront the parts of ourselves that we're not proud of. But it's worth it, because when we change, we create the possibility for a better world. The national conference was a turning point for Tasha and Linda. Their speech resonated with thousands of people, and the video of their talk went viral, spreading their message of healing and accountability far and wide. They were inundated with messages from people who had been inspired by their story, and requests for workshops and speaking engagements poured in from across the country. But with the increased attention came new challenges. Tasha and Linda found themselves under scrutiny, their every move analyzed and critiqued. Some people praised their partnership as a powerful example of reconciliation, while others questioned whether Linda's transformation was genuine. The pressure was intense, and it tested their resolve in ways they hadn't anticipated. One evening, after a long day of meetings and interviews, Tasha and Linda sat together in a quiet cafe, decompressing over cups of tea. The weight of the past few weeks was evident in their tired eyes. I didn't expect it to be this hard, Linda admitted, her voice heavy with exhaustion. I knew people would have opinions, but I didn't think it would feel so personal. Tasha nodded, stirring her tea thoughtfully. I get it, she said. It's not easy putting yourself out there, especially when you're trying to do something meaningful. But we can't let the noise distract us from why we're doing this. Linda sighed, running a hand through her hair. I just hope people can see that I'm trying. I know I'll never be perfect, but I'm committed to this, to being better. Tasha reached across the table and placed a hand on Linda's. I see it, she said softly. And that's what matters. We can't control what other people think, but we can control how we show up. And you've been showing up, Linda, every single day. Linda looked at Tasha, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, she said. That means more than you know. As the weeks went by, Tasha and Linda continued to navigate the challenges of their newfound visibility. They leaned on each other for support, their partnership growing stronger with each passing day. They also began to expand their work, launching an online platform for bridges that offered resources, workshops, and a community for people to share their stories. One of the most powerful aspects of the platform was a series of video conversations between Tasha and Linda, where they discussed their journey in raw, unfiltered detail. These conversations resonated deeply with their audience, offering a glimpse into the complexities of healing and accountability. In one particularly emotional video, Tasha opened up about her struggles with forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't a one-time thing, she said. It's a process. Some days, I feel at peace with everything that's happened. Other days, the anger and hurt come rushing back. And that's okay. Healing isn't linear. Linda nodded, her eyes filled with empathy. I know I can't undo the pain I caused, she said. But I'm committed to being here, to listening, and to doing the work. That's all I can do. The impact of their work continued to grow, and Tasha and Linda found themselves at the forefront of a movement. They were invited to speak at universities, corporations, and even government institutions, sharing their message of healing and understanding. They also began to collaborate with other activists and organizations, amplifying their reach and creating even more opportunities for change. One of their most significant collaborations was with a nonprofit organization focused on racial justice. Together, they launched a nationwide campaign called See Me, Hear Me, which aimed to raise awareness about the impact of racism and body shaming and to promote empathy and allyship. The campaign featured powerful stories from people of all backgrounds, each one highlighting the importance of seeing and hearing each other's humanity. Tasha and Linda's story was at the heart of the campaign, serving as a reminder that change is possible, even in the face of deep pain and division. As the campaign gained momentum, Tasha and Linda found themselves reflecting on how far they had come. They had started as strangers, brought together by an act of cruelty and ignorance. But through their shared commitment to growth and healing, they had become partners, allies, and even friends. One evening, as they sat together on the rooftop of their hotel, watching the sunset, Tasha turned to Linda with a smile. "I never would have imagined this," she said. "Us here doing this work together. It's kind of amazing, isn't it?" Linda nodded, her eyes shining with emotion. "It is," she said, "and I'm so grateful for it. For you. I know I've said it before, but I'll keep saying it as long as I live. Thank you for giving me a chance." Tasha reached out and squeezed Linda's hand. "Thank you for taking it," she said. "We've come a long way, but this is just the beginning. There's still so much work to do." The story of Tasha and Linda was far from over. Their journey had taken them from pain and conflict to collaboration and healing, but there was still so much more to come. They knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but they were ready to face it together. As they sat there, watching the sun dip below the horizon, they felt a sense of hope for themselves, for each other, and for the world they were working to create. Change was possible, and they were living proof of it. And so, their story continued, a testament to the power of resilience, accountability, and the human capacity for growth. The end of one chapter was simply the beginning of the next, and Tasha and Linda were ready to write it together.